Hey guys, Waterfowler41 here. It is Thanksgiving morning. We got nothing going on until later on this afternoon, so we're going to be installing some truck parts. So enter the Swarfworks third brake light kit. So this is from Swarfworks. What this does is replaces your factory third brake light housing with this billet kit, and it allows you to mount 3 Baja Designs S2 pods into the housing itself. You're probably going to say, hey, you got Diode Dynamics all over your truck. Why not use a kit that mounts Diode Dynamics? And I would if I could, but unfortunately no one makes one. So we are limited to just using Baja Designs here. So we're going to be installing the Swarfworks third brake light kit. In conjunction with that, we're going to be using the LVJ Motorsports wiring harness. So LVJ makes a whole bunch of different wiring harnesses for running these things. Some you could turn these guys into turn signals. You could turn them into reverse signals. Bunch of different options. I went with the basic plus reverse. So what does that mean? That means that when I open my door and you see those white lights turn on in my factory brake light, that is going to turn on the center light here. So it's going to operate just like the white lights do now. Also, when I put my truck in reverse, it's also going to turn this on, and it does that via this diode here. So this diode, the white wire here will connect into our BCM for our reverse signal. So once that sees a signal, it's going to go through here and it's going to turn the light on. Then on the back side of the Swarfworks light, you got this signal. This is for that white cargo light. So when you open doors, it turns it on. That will give us this functionality, and this plugs right into the other side of the diode here. So the diode's like a one-way valve. One thing that I will do is I'm going to wire the outside ambers into my Diode Dynamics D switch, and the reason I'm going to do that is because in the D switch I can control how those lights operate. So if I turn on the circuit for the S2s on the outside, I'm going to put them on strobe, and because they are amber, really they're there for dust lights and really clearance lights, just to make sure everyone driving behind you can see you. I absolutely love these things, particularly when the winter weather gets real bad around here and you start to get a lot of that blowing snow. I'll turn on those rear hazards so that folks can see me. Let's start this by removing the factory third brake light. We got to pull the camera off of there. We got to transplant that over here, and then we can install the rest of our S2 pods, and then we can get right into the rest of the installation. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is remove the factory third brake light. Now you'll see I still have my mPower ORV light still installed. I'm gonna be removing this because a lot of the functionality that this does, the Swarfworks is gonna do the same thing and then some. So that's really why I'm upgrading here. So if you're interested in this, let me know. I'm gonna be getting rid of this guy, and we're just gonna be using the Swarfworks kit. But a Torx T20 bit is all you need. It's just 4 of these screws, and then we'll just pop those guys out. All right, so once you have your screws completely out of that third brake light, it's pretty simple. Even without the ORV light here, it just pops off. There's no clips or anything. And then you got your wiring harness here. You got your camera. We'll unplug that. And then you got your harness for the actual lights itself. We'll just unplug that. Now we can take this guy. Let's go get it down on the workbench, and we're going to be removing our camera and transplanting this guy over to the Swarfworks kit, and then we'll get our S2s installed, and then we're ready to go to pop everything in here and then start running our wires. All right, so once we get our third brake light off the truck, the first thing we want to do is remove the camera from the factory one, because we're going to transplant that guy right on the Swarfworks. It's a Torx T10 bit, and it's kind of 2 pieces. So this gray piece here is sort of a shell that goes over the top of the camera. So we're going to remove that guy. And it's 2 screws holding that on, but this shell basically pushes up against the back side of the camera. So remove that, and you can see it just went loose. Come on. And then we'll pull that guy off. And that should pop the camera completely out. There's some wire harnesses in the way. Just be careful with those. There we go. So now our camera is removed. We can toss this guy aside. We don't need this anymore. All right, so now that we got our camera removed from our factory housing, we're going to relocate it right into the camera housing on the Swarfworks one. Now it's a little bit of an angle. So we're just going to push that into there. And you see it sits nice and cleanly and sound in there. Now you get some new hardware in the kit from Swarfworks, because this is billet, so everything's machined. So you don't use those self-tappers that come in the factory one. We're going to take our little bracket here, and that lines up with some holes there. We'll take our screws that came in the Swarfworks kit. Go ahead and install these guys once I can get it on the hex head here. There we go. Just tighten that guy down. Now, it doesn't need to be crazy tight, just enough to hold things in place. You will crack this plastic. It doesn't look like it's super strong plastic. All right, So our camera is good to go. So now the next thing we need to do is get the rest of our S2 pods, and I'll show you how to get the weather seal. We'll install that and then get the rest of the pods in here, and then we're good to go to throw this guy in the truck and start running our wires. All right, when it comes time to install your S2 pods in the housing, first thing we're going to do is remove this factory trim piece on the Baja Design lights. We no longer need this, nor do we need the hardware. And I'll point out one of these benefits in a second here, but this is one of the reasons why I really like the Swarfworks kit, is because all of the hardware for mounting the lights is hidden. On my last third brake light, the hardware was exposed to the elements, and this stuff ends up rusting after a while, especially here in the salt belt. Here with the Swarfworks kit, all of the hardware is inside the housing, so you don't need to worry about it being exposed. And it uses kind of a cool method for installing these lights and kind of holding them into place that I have not seen on any other lights. Let's get these guys off. So once you get that hardware removed, you can go ahead and toss that little trim ring aside. We don't need that anymore. All we need is the pod like this. Make sure you know what side's the top, what side's the bottom, because we want to make sure the top is obviously facing the top there. Then in the Swarfworks kit, you get these little gaskets. These gaskets will go on the front of the light and push up against the backside of the Swarfworks housing. Now the cool thing is they're keyed, so you make sure that this little notch here in the seal is lined up with the inside of the housing here. So these mounting holes for the screws that hold the pod into place, the seal is mounted around there, or it's cut to be fit around that. So we're just going to push this guy into place. Nice flat seal. Double check that it's lined up. It is. And then in the kit, you get these big fat Phillips head screws. So this is where I said it's pretty unique how they mount these things. So these screws push on the backside of the S2 pods, and this is what holds it into place. So this allows the light to have quote-unquote unexposed hardware. Let me show you in a second here. Let me get this guy in. Just make sure you keep nice even pressure as you're screwing this guy down. All right, so what I mean by unexposed hardware is other third brake lights on the market have screws, and you basically take the screws that come with the S2, and then you feed them through here, and that's what holds the housing or the light to the housing. These mount from the back side, and this basically pushes everything up against that seal and gives you a nice clean look on the front. So the only screws you see are the ones to mount the light to the actual truck. So let's go ahead and finish and do the middle one, and then we're good to go to start throwing some of the wires in the truck and walking through how we wire that to the BCM as well as to our D-switch. So let me finish up mounting that center light here. All right, now that we got our third brake light ready to go, it is prepared. Now what we need to work on is wiring. So the first thing we need to do is kind of plan out our wiring. So basically what I'm gonna do is do exactly what I did with the Empower one, come across the top, drop down here on the C-pillar, cut across the floor, and then ultimately you wanna land your wires in the front passenger footwell because the BCM is right here, as is a ground. And then there's also a hole in the floor here that I'm gonna pass the power wires for the two outside pods so I can wire it up into my D-switch, which is in the engine bay. So everything's gotta end up here. So what we need to do is remove our floor mats, and then we're gonna pull off this plastic panel. Simple, we're just gonna basically reach up here, pull it straight back. We're gonna pull off that little sill plate there. I don't think we really need to pull anything off here. We could slide the wires underneath there or actually fish them through, and then we'll go up on the front and do the same thing. We're gonna pull off the sill plate here, and then we're gonna pull off this panel. You could leave it in there. There's a panel that gives you access to the BCM, but it's actually a lot easier to just pull this guy off. Gives you a lot more room to work with. So anyway, let's go ahead and get all those panels off, and we'll start walking through the wiring room. All right, so just a quick stock take at where I'm at with the wiring. So I have the main LVJ harness run through the right side of the third mount high brake light. It does help if you open up the window, you can kind of feed things through. Then I went ahead and pulled the C-pillar off. I left the seatbelt on, so that's why you see it hanging there. And you can see the wire right here. So you want to avoid the airbag. So I have mine running down below it right now, and then it's just gonna follow this drain tube for the sunroof. And it's gonna go all the way down into the sill plate here, and then it's just gonna get dragged all the way forward. So that's the easy part. This was the hardest part. Really what you wanna do is avoid any sort of contact with this guy. So you can see I have mine just kind of cutting through right above, and then just zip tie the crap out of it just to keep it from rattling up against everything. Tuck it behind any sort of existing trim panels or existing little clips there. That way you have something to zip tie to. So for now, we're done with the wiring. I'm gonna go back up in the truck bed and we'll finish up that section of it, and then we'll finish up wiring. We'll save the rest of this for last. Let's just get everything buttoned up. All right, so here's what we got. We got our LVJ harness here. These two are ready to go for the outside lights. This is for our center light. We got our diode here. We need to connect that diode to the other side of the harness on the third mount brake light. One thing we need to do before we install this guy on there is install this gasket here. So really we're just gonna pull off that backing on adhesive and we're gonna stick the gasket to the light itself. That's a much easier, cleaner, and safer way to do it. I've seen some folks try to install on the body of the truck. That seems just kind of backwards to me. So we're gonna feed all the wires through here before we get too far committed on wiring everything, get this guy installed. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install these little backing plates. So this is the second reason why I think this is one of the best third brake lights on the market outside of the hidden hardware, is because you replace these chintzy little factory clips with these little metal clips. So these metal clips fit in behind these panels. So you see these little oblong ones, they'll fit right there. And what they do is give you a better backing plate to screw everything into. So once I get these clips pulled out of here, I'll show you how to install the ones that come in the kit, and then we can keep this install going. All right, so as far as these little backing plates, so you get 4 of them. You get 2 for the middle, and then you get 2 for the outside. So this is the outside. There's VHB adhesive on there, and that VHB adhesive is gonna attach to the back side of this portion of the body. So basically, once you install it like that. What you're gonna wanna do is get a screw, put it in there, pull off the backing in here, carefully line these up, thread the screw in there lightly. That way you could line up the clip with the hole so that you make sure that when it comes time to install the Swarfworks thing, everything lines up properly. So let me get this guy out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and install these guys. Like I said, you get 4 of them. So these 2 little guys will go right there. You can see they're cut to fit in between the little trim of the body. But again, they are there to provide a much meatier backing for the screws when it comes time to install this guy. This is a heavy piece. It's not like the plastic piece where you can use those little clips. You got to get those clips out of there and then use these backing pieces. So you got a little bit more meat and a little bit more support there. So let's get these guys installed, get the gasket installed, and then start plugging everything in up here. All right, before we button up everything, here's what it looks like. Again, I just wrapped all the plastic plugs and tested tape. I'm gonna try to shove them back in here. There's a little bit of room in here. I think everything pushing up against each other is gonna hold everything in place. Don't be like me. Pay attention to the orientation light. I actually had this thing upside down, so when I plugged these in, they were on the wrong side, and I wasted a whole bunch of test tape. But anyway, now we're good to go to push these wires back inside the holes there, and then get the hardware that comes in the Swarfworks kit, pop it through the holes here, and then align it right here, and then just tighten everything down. Gonna give us a nice solid mount. Just be careful, make sure it's a nice even, or you're evenly tightening this so that the gasket smushes down properly, so you get a nice weather-proof seal. All right, there you go. Everything's fully installed. When you're installing it, make sure you tighten these guys evenly, and you're just keeping an eye on the seal. You want a nice tight seal up against the body of the truck. If you push it and you feel it flex a little bit more, you could tighten it just a bit more. Remember, you got some beefy backing plates in there, so you can get a little bit crazy, not totally wild, with tightening this guy down. But we're good to go here. So now let's go back into the cab, pull the excess wire, whatever we can, start zip tying things up, and then get everything run over to that passenger side footwell. All right, so we got our third brake light fully installed. We got our wire run across the top of the cab. It's dropped us down the C-pillar. I have it zip tied along that drain tube for the sunroof, or whatever you want to call it, panoramic roof. Runs down this way underneath the sill plate. There is a wire tray, and I'll show you it right here. This wire tray goes front to back, so if you just run a little bit of a chase wire in there and then pull these guys through, then you're good to go. So this is the LVJ harness here. Now we have 4 wires that we got to find homes for. First one's pretty obvious. That's the ground. That guy will go, let's get light on the situation. That guy will go right on this ground. Yellow and blue, I'm going to tie those together, and then I'm going to run a wire up into the engine bay so I can control those via my D switch, which is where the brain's at. And then this white wire needs to tie into the BCM. So not quite sure exactly what wire yet. I got to go look it up. But what we're going to do is we're going to clip this guy off, and I'm going to use a posi tap because it's a little bit easier to install those in tight spaces. And then that should give us our reverse signal. So when I throw the truck in reverse, that center light that is the work scene reflector, so that clear one up top, should turn on when the truck is in reverse. All right, so it's been a couple days because I was really racking my brain trying to make this work. Now, the original intention of the LVJ harness was when my truck is in reverse, we're gonna tie into the BCM, it's gonna trigger that center light to come on, and once you're in reverse, that light will come on and give you an extra reverse light. Now, that would require you to tie into the BCM. Once I look down underneath the dash, and I saw the BCM plug that you got to tie into, and I saw how much little length of wire you have on the back end of it. I said, screw it. We're not going to go that far. It would be nice. However, I feel like I'm going to do more damage trying to get access to the wire, which I think is a brown with a green tracer, or green with a brown tracer. So we're going to pivot a little bit. So instead of tying into the reverse signal so that white light automatically comes on, I took the wire for the center white light and I tied it into my aux switch number 6. So that's yellow with a red tracer here, or yellow-orange, I'm not sure exactly. But this way now, if I ever want to have that light turn on when my doors are closed, I just got to hit aux switch and it'll turn on the center light. So again, no more auto reverse functionality. Maybe I could run a relay later on. I just felt uncomfortable trying to dig into that BCM harness. So white wire tied into aux 6, so I can control the white light in the middle. Yellow and blue are tied into a single 14 gauge wire. That passes through the floor right there, goes up underneath the truck, follows the rest of the wires up the back of the passenger side wheel well, and lands it right inside the D-switch panel. The reason why I have the amber lights plugged into here is because I could control the functionality of the lights. So I could turn them on strobe, which is what I have them on right now. So we got our white light tied in aux 6. It's on right now because the door is on. We have our ambers tied into the D-switch on my dust light switch, little panel there. And I'll show you how that works in a bit. So we are good to go. So let's clean up everything, put all the trim panels back in. Don't forget while you're in here, make sure that you get your ground installed right here. Let's button up everything, and then I'll show you how the light functions. All right, so let's talk about light functionality. So the center light has 2 functions. First function, it's gonna open on with my cargo, or it's gonna turn on with my cargo light when I open any of the doors. So we'll see that in a second. And then, like I said previously, I have it tied in an aux switch. So if I'm driving around or if I put the truck in reverse and none of the doors are open, I can hit aux switch and turn that on, and then that'll turn on the center light on. The 2 outside amber lights are controlled by a different switch panel, so that's my D switch, and we'll talk about that in a second. But right now I have them set as strobe. So if I hit the dust lights button on my switch panel for the D switch, it'll strobe those lights, which is what you want if you got dust lights or snow lights or whatever you want to call them. So anyway, I open a door and you see the 3 lights on the bottom come on, as do my cargo lights. So the 3 lights on the bottom, you need those. These trucks are a wide load. That's just because we need to have, we need to meet the DOT requirements. But anyway, cargo light is on. So now let's go grab my phone and I'll show you the D switch. So D switch panel is right there in front of my shifter. And if I hit the dust lights right here, you see the lights are doing exactly what I want them to do. I wanted them to strobe. So let me kind of walk you through the D switch since I never really made a video about this, guys. So I'm in the Diode Dynamics app here. So if I want to go into settings, button and channel, and I want to adjust how these lights work, let's go ahead and turn that circuit off so we're not messing with anything. So right now, if I go all the way to the bottom here, these are all the different types of lighting patterns I can control them. So if I want to hit that button and I want them full on, I just hit that guy. If I want them to do 3 fast, then a brake, 3 fast, or opposites, or just kind of a simple or a slow strobe, we'll do slow strobe on this one. And then I go back. Now the cool thing is you can control the light by here. So we got our dust lights, they're off right now, and we set them for slow strobe. So there you go. But again, I feel like if you're gonna go through the effort of putting amber lights in your high mount brake light, you want them to have some sort of strobe functionality. So whether you do it with an inline strobe function, there's like a diode you can get to do that, or you do them with an external switch, something like the D switch or the S pod, this is what you wanna do. Basically, you could have these on constant, kind of boring. You want them flashing so that people see you, and that's really the intent in the ambers, is so that folks behind you in dirt, dust, or snowy conditions, so they can see where your truck is at. But anyway, very cool functionality. I'm really happy with the overall install on this guy. Super easy, it fits really nice. I was just out in the snow all day yesterday. No issues with any water infiltration. It looks great, looks a heck of a lot better than what I had on there before. Swarfworks really did their homework with making this guy fit perfectly. But if you have any questions on installing yours, I will leave a link to the Swarfworks light as well as the LVJ harnesses down in the description below. But if you got any questions, leave them down in the comments or hit me up on Instagram. Happy to help on this one. Like I said, my main intent was to have this so it turns on when I'm in reverse. But once I saw how short the wires were by the BCM, I didn't want to chance it. If you have the technical fortitude to do it or the gonads to do it, by all means go for it. Just be careful. There's a lot of really skinny wires there. And while you're cutting that tape, you might strip one and just end up in a world of hurt down there by the BCM, and I didn't want to chance it. But anyway, that's how you install the Swarfworks light. Appreciate you all watching the channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Got some other videos coming up here in the new year. This might be the last one for this year. hopefully, while I spend some time with the family and get some hockey games out of the way. But anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye.